History is full of wars, some lasting for years, others for decades. These conflicts have shaped nations, altered borders, and left indelible marks on the collective memory of humanity. From the 100 Years' War between England and France to the protracted Vietnam War, the annals of history are replete with tales of prolonged strife and struggle. But have you ever heard of a war that lasted less than an hour? It sounds almost impossible, doesn't it? Yet, such an event did occur, and it stands as a unique chapter in the chronicles of warfare. Believe it or not, such a war exists. It defies the conventional understanding of what a war entails, challenging our perceptions of conflict and resolution. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, fought on August 27, 1896, holds the record for the shortest war in history. This brief but intense conflict took place on the island of Zanzibar, a strategic location off the coast of East Africa, known for its rich history and cultural significance. It lasted a mere 38 to 45 minutes. In the time it takes to watch an episode of your favorite TV show, this war began and ended, leaving a lasting impact on the region and its people. This conflict, though brief, offers a fascinating glimpse into the age of empires, local resistance, and the overwhelming power of 19th century naval technology. The British Empire, at the height of its colonial power, faced off against the Sultanate of Zanzibar, a small but strategically important nation. This wasn't a minor skirmish. Despite its short duration, the Anglo-Zanzibar War was a significant event, reflecting the broader geopolitical tensions of the era. It was a clash between the mighty British Empire and the Sultanate of Zanzibar, a small but proud island nation off the coast of East Africa. The conflict was sparked by the death of the pro-British Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini and the succession of Sultan Khalid bin Bargash, who was not favoured by the British. The brevity of the war might seem comical, but the underlying issues were deadly serious. The British, determined to maintain their influence in the region, issued an ultimatum to Sultan Khalid to step down. When he refused, the British naval forces opened fire, leading to a swift and decisive victory. The Anglo-Zanzibar War serves as a stark reminder that even in the most lopsided of conflicts, the human cost of war is always significant. The bombardment resulted in the deaths of approximately 500 Zanzibaris, while the British suffered only one casualty. This brief but brutal conflict underscores the devastating impact of colonialism and the lengths to which empires would go to maintain their dominance. To understand this lightning war, we need to delve into the rich and complex history of Zanzibar. We need to travel back in time to an era when the world was vastly different from what we know today. Specifically, we journey to the late 19th century, a period marked by rapid change and intense global competition. Zanzibar, often referred to as the Spice Island, was a place of immense strategic and economic importance. Its bustling markets were filled with the rich aromas of cloves, nutmeg, and other exotic spices. These spices were not just commodities, they were treasures that drew traders from all corners of the globe. The island's ports were constantly abuzz with activity, as ships from distant lands docked to trade goods. The cloves and other spices cultivated in Zanzibar were highly sought after around the world. They were essential not only for culinary purposes, but also for their medicinal properties and use in perfumes. The global demand for these spices made Zanzibar a key player in international trade. Ships laden with spices would set sail from its harbours, destined for markets in Europe, Asia, and beyond. But spices were not the only valuable commodities traded in Zanzibar. The island was also a crucial hub for the ivory and slave trade, which added to its significance on the world stage. Ivory, harvested from African elephants, was highly prized for its beauty and utility. The slave trade, though abhorrent, was a grim reality of the time, and Zanzibar was a central point in this dark chapter of history. This made Zanzibar a focal point for European powers who were eager to control these lucrative trade routes and resources. The island's strategic location made it a coveted prize in the colonial race. European nations, driven by the desire to expand their empires and increase their wealth, saw Zanzibar as a key to unlocking the riches of East Africa. Control over Zanzibar meant control over a significant portion of the region's trade. The British Empire, at the height of its power, had a particularly keen interest in Zanzibar. The island's strategic position along the East African coast made it an ideal location for the British to establish a foothold in the region. British colonial officials recognized the immense potential of Zanzibar. They saw the island as a crucial link in their global network of colonies and trade routes. To the British, Zanzibar was not just another colony, it was a linchpin in their strategy to dominate East Africa. Control over Zanzibar would ensure their dominance over the region's trade and resources. The British had already established a protectorate over Zanzibar, giving them significant influence over the island's affairs. This protectorate status allowed them to exert considerable control over the local government and economy. However, the British were not content with just influence. They desired complete control. They wanted to ensure that Zanzibar would fully align with their interests and policies. This desire for control was driven by several factors, including their anti-slavery agenda. The British were determined to abolish the slave trade, which clashed with the interests of some Zanzibari leaders who profited from it. The British believed that by taking full control of Zanzibar, they could more effectively enforce their anti-slavery policies and bring an end to the inhumane practice. This clash of interests set the stage for a series of conflicts and political maneuvers as the British sought to solidify their hold on Zanzibar and implement their vision for the island's future. The tension between the British and Zanzibari leaders would eventually lead to dramatic and far-reaching consequences, shaping the island's history for years to come. The Anglo-Zanzibar War was sparked by a sudden death and a controversial succession. In August 1896, Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, who was largely pro-British, died unexpectedly. His death created a power vacuum that would have significant consequences. Into this vacuum stepped Khalid bin Bargash, a powerful and ambitious figure who declared himself the new sultan. This was a direct challenge to the British. The Protectorate Agreement stipulated that any new sultan needed British approval. Khalid, however, had other plans. He was not as willing to cooperate with the British and represented a faction that wanted to maintain the traditional power structures of Zanzibar, including the slave trade. His defiance set the stage for a confrontation. The British, accustomed to getting their way, were furious. Their empire, vast and powerful, was built on the premise of control and dominance. Any challenge to their authority was met with swift and decisive action. They saw Khalid's ascension as an affront to their authority and a threat to their interests in the region. Zanzibar, a strategic location on the East African coast, was crucial for their trade routes and influence in Africa. Khalid's unexpected rise to power disrupted their carefully laid plans. They quickly decided to replace him with a more pliable ruler, someone who would toe the British line. Meetings were held in secret, strategies were discussed, and a plan was set in motion. The British were determined to maintain their grip on Zanzibar, no matter the cost. Their choice was Hamoud bin Mohammed, a man they believed would be more amenable to their demands. Hamoud had shown loyalty to the British in the past, and they were confident he would continue to do so. His ascension would ensure that British interests in the region remained protected. On August 26, 1896, the British delivered an ultimatum to Khalid bin Bargash. The document was stern and uncompromising, reflecting the gravity of the situation. Khalid was given a clear choice: step down or face the might of the British Empire. He was ordered to relinquish his claim to the throne and evacuate the Sultan's palace by 9 a.m. the next day. The palace, a symbol of his power and authority, was now at the center of a brewing conflict. The ultimatum left no room for negotiation or delay. The British made it clear that refusal would be met with force. Their message was unmistakable. Any resistance would be crushed. The display of military might was intended to intimidate and coerce Khalid into compliance. They assembled a formidable naval force in the harbor, ready to unleash their firepower. Warships bristling with cannons and artillery stood poised for action. The clock was ticking and the tension was palpable. The fate of Zanzibar hung in the balance as the deadline approached. Section 5, the clock strikes 9. The morning of August 27th dawned heavy with tension. The British warships, bristling with guns, sat menacingly in the harbor. On shore, Khalid bin Bargash and his supporters prepared for the inevitable. He refused to back down, choosing defiance over surrender. Inside the Sultan's palace, a small but determined force made ready to resist the impending attack. At precisely 9 o'clock in the morning, the deadline passed. Khalid bin Bargash remained defiant, refusing to leave the palace. The British, true to their word, prepared to make good on their threat. The die was cast. The shortest war in history was about to begin. Section 6. A Rain of Fire. At 9:02 a.m., just 2 minutes after the ultimatum expired, the British warships unleashed their firepower. The protected cruiser HMS, the flagship of the British fleet, fired the first shot. It was the opening salvo in a bombardment that would last less than 40 minutes, but leave a lasting mark on history. Shells rained down upon the Sultan's palace, reducing the grand structure to rubble. Zanzibari artillery batteries, hopelessly outmatched, attempted to return fire but were quickly silenced. The Zanzibari navy, consisting of a few small vessels, was swiftly destroyed. The overwhelming firepower of the British Navy proved too much for the Zanzibari defences to withstand. Section 7. The shortest war ends. The bombardment was over almost as soon as it began. By 9:40 a.m., just 38 minutes after the first shot, the Sultan's flag was lowered. The palace, once a symbol of Zanzibari power, lay in ruins. Khalid bin Bargash, escaping through a secret passage as the palace crumbled around him, fled to the German consulate seeking asylum. The Anglo-Zanzibar War was over. It had lasted a mere 38 minutes, making it the shortest recorded war in history. In that short time, hundreds of Zanzibari soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded. The British, in contrast, suffered only one man wounded. The lopsided nature of the conflict highlighted the vast disparity in military power between the two sides. Section 8. The Aftermath. With the smoke clearing over the devastated palace, the British moved swiftly to install their preferred successor. Hamoud bin Mohammed, deemed more acceptable to British interests, was proclaimed the new Sultan of Zanzibar. He would rule under the watchful eye of the British, his every move scrutinized. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, though brief, had lasting consequences. It solidified British dominance in Zanzibar, turning the once proud sultanate into a puppet state. The war also marked a turning point in the fight against slavery in East Africa. The new Sultan, eager to please his British overlords, abolished slavery in Zanzibar, a major victory for the abolitionist movement. Section 9. A lasting legacy. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, despite its almost comical brevity, stands as a stark reminder of the brutal realities of colonialism. It demonstrated the willingness of imperial powers to use overwhelming force to achieve their objectives, no matter how small the obstacle. The war also highlighted the human cost of resistance against such overwhelming odds. Today, the memory of the Anglo-Zanzibar War serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us of the dangers of unchecked ambition, the importance of diplomacy, and the enduring legacy of colonialism. The war may have been short, but its impact on Zanzibar and the broader course of history is undeniable.